You expected to see more of this, softer inflation prints in the months ahead?
Yes, I do. I think it's important to recognize that the year-over-year, which is kind of high right now at 2.9, that's going to look a lot better by April, because the first 4 months of last year, we saw pretty strong inflation. So that makes it very easy to get down to a low 2s by April. And overall, this is not an inflation-prone economy. I mean, the economy left to itself is just chugging along, steady growth, a little over 2% growth, unemployment very steady, and inflation gradually coming down. So, the economy itself looks pretty good right now. It's got a lot coming up on the plate here, but overall, feel pretty good about inflation.
We'll talk about what's coming up on the plate, and I assume you're talking about incoming policy changes potentially. You've written about this, sources of inflation, labour, energy, goods and services. Where do you have the most confidence now?
I think the most important is the labour market, and I think what we've seen is American workers just won't ask for a raise. It's remarkable. I mean, we saw production non-supervisory workers' wages up 3.8% year over year. We've got 8 million job openings. Everybody knows it's hard to find a good employee, but yet quits rates are below where they were before the pandemic. And either American business is great at saying why they're not going to give people a raise, or American workers are just wimpy about asking for one. But whatever way it works, we're just not getting inflation coming out of the labour market. And without that, you cannot get sustained inflation.
Just to that point on the labor market, as we're digesting CPI, you have had these individual announcements from companies, be it from Meta, Microsoft, Southwest, Citi when it comes to benefits, about reducing hiring, not hiring, or even letting people go. Just some of that softness. Do you look at that and say these are idiosyncratic company events, or does it suggest that something has indeed shifted in the labor market in terms of who has the power and overall represents some form of softness?
I think it's good messaging from these companies. There's nothing like announcing prospective layoffs to quieten down the labor force. So I think it's a way of really suppressing wage gains. There's no evidence in GDP. I mean, if you want to figure out where employment's going, look at where GDP has been, because the last 4 quarters, the current quarter and the previous 3 quarters, are a very good driver of payroll employment. So I know that the rate of growth of this economy is capable of generating 150 to 175,000 jobs per month as an average through this year, and that forecast is good for at least the next 3 to 6 months anyway. So there really isn't any softness in terms of the overall economy, but businesses, they focus on margins, they focus on efficiencies. How can we be more productive? And yes, if that means announcing, well, we're going to have to lay off a few people, then that actually works in terms of maintaining cost control.
David, John mentioned energy, and that was a big part of this inflation story for this print, 40%, I believe.
Yeah.
IEA overnight was saying actually they see a smaller glut next year. How concerned are you that fighting energy prices, higher oil prices, higher gasoline prices is going to be a concern for 2025?
Not too much. I mean, if you look at the global composite PMI index, you've got a global economy that is kind of muddling forward. The US is doing very well, and places like India and Italy are doing well, but a lot of Europe and particularly China are pretty soft here. That's not going to generate a lot of demand. Meanwhile, I think with the change in administration, you could get 2 things. One, you may get a peace settlement in the Middle East, which could dampen down tensions a little bit and concerns. And then secondly, you're going to have a very pro-drilling policy, which could increase US production, and some deregulation, which could help the energy sector. So overall, I don't think energy prices for fossil fuels are likely to go up significantly over the next few years.